Thanks everyone for coming, and today we're going to be going over how to create a resume. So let's go over the status quo. What's the problem that we're all having? So I'm sure many of you guys have heard about the problem. You send 100 applications to a ton of companies and none of them respond to you. You get rejected, or even worse, you get ghosted, no response at all. So why does this happen? There are three main reasons. The first reason is that there's an extreme influx of applicants. There are so many computer science students now, and there's so many that computer science is one of the only impacted majors at universities, which means it's harder to get into just as CS. The second reason is because job listings are super easy to find. You can go to LinkedIn, you can go to anywhere. Anyone in the US can apply for a job listing. An example can be found here. In only 2 weeks, there was over 500 applicants, which is an insane number. No real hiring team has the full potential to read all those resumes. And because of this, they have to use automated filters. They use systems called the ATS, otherwise known as the applicant tracking system, which means that even before your resume gets seen by anyone, it gets automatically removed. So because of these issues, a lot of people have wondered, is it even possible to get an entry-level paid internship without experience? And the answer is yes. Many positions are still vacant, and there will always be a need for high-quality engineers. So let's go over my background, what qualifies me to talk about this. I'm a computer science student here, I'm the vice president of this club, and I also run the entrepreneurship club. But what's more relevant is that I'm a resume editor on Fiverr. I've done over 70 orders, I have 4.9 stars, and I've gotten a lot of people, even without previous experience, into companies such as Amazon, Nvidia, MasterCard, HP, and Facebook, which is now Meta. So then, these are some of my testimonials. If you want to look at them after, feel free to ask me or just go to my Fiverr. So now, let's go into the solution. How do you land your first position? So there are three main parts of a job application. There's the resume, the interview, and the cover letter. Although the interview is the final determining factor, you need a sufficient resume and cover letter to even get to the interview stage. A lot of people say that the interview is the first impression, but it isn't. Remember, your resume is actually the first impression your employer has of you. So it's really important to set that straight. So what is a resume? A resume summarizes your professional life into a single document. Especially as students or new grads, this has to be one page. The easiest way to get automatically rejected is to have a 3-page resume. This rule doesn't apply if you have 20 years of experience. But for pretty much everyone here, stick to 1 page. And the second thing you want to do is highlight your skills, experience, and your education. You want to highlight your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. So make sure to tailor your resume as such as using different ordering or increasing the font size. And the third thing is, a resume is a personal marketing tool. Most likely the team has never met you before they read your resume, so that's all they have to go off of. Now let's go over things you should not do on your resume. The first thing is that a resume is not an autobiography of your career. If you've worked in positions such as retail or McDonald's or food service and you're applying for a software engineering job, you should remove those. Not saying that those experiences are invalid, it's just unfortunately the companies simply don't care. That space is wasted space that you can put for a relevant project so you can show your skills in languages such as Python and C++. It's also not a one-size-fits-all document. The biggest mistake I see people making is that they just search up free resume template and then they just copy and paste all of their projects and experience. Remember, your resume is your personal marketing tool, which means that it should highlight your strengths and decrease your weaknesses. You're not able to do that if you use just a standard template. And the third thing, it's not a static document. Every 2 to 3 months, make sure to update your resume. Even if you have no new experience, you can definitely improve your skills or add more experience into your bullet points. And here's some examples of what happens when you run a resume this is like a generic template on Canva. This is actually the highest rated template, but when you run it through this ATS system, it runs into a ton of issues. First of all, your ATS system doesn't even read it properly. This 2-column system, a lot of the times it'll get parsed wrong. You can see the date gets read wrong. Your name doesn't even get correctly read if it's not in black text. And there's a lot of other issues. But one issue that I find really funny that people make, I made this mistake too a lot, is that a lot of the times they'll put bar graphs or stars. Like for example, you put 5 stars in Python, 4 stars in C to show that you're better at Python. Now, there's 2 issues with this. First of all, the ATS resume system can't read stars or bar graphs, so it's completely useless. But second of all, why would you advertise you're mediocre as something? For example, let's say you have a movie poster. Would you want to put a 2-star movie or a 3-star testimonial on your movie poster? You probably shouldn't, because your resume is your personal marketing tool. So either put all of your strengths on it and just leave out the weaknesses. So let's go over the components of a resume. We know what a resume is and what you shouldn't do. So what composites it? So there's 4 main things you want to include. It's education, skills, experience in projects, and miscellaneous. Miscellaneous can include things like organizations or awards, but I don't have any on my resume. So can one of you guys tell me which Out of this resume, which one do you think comes first? Any guesses? Education. That is a trick question because the answer is none of them. The first thing that goes is your header. I didn't include that as an option, but this is actually a lot more important than people think. So let's get into it. So first, you want to put your name. Hopefully, I don't have to explain why you have to put your name. But the thing that people forget is putting the job title of your resume. It doesn't matter if you've never worked as a software engineer, you want to show the employers your future intent of what you want to do. Also, this helps boost the keyword count. So for example, if your job description says data science analytics, put that exact phrasing next to your name. Second thing you want to include is your email. You can use a generic Gmail, but there's a pretty big advantage of using a student email. It shows employers that you're a student, which means they're willing to pay you less. But if your job is to just get your foot in the door and you don't care about being paid less, make sure you use your EDU email to emphasize that. The second thing is your LinkedIn and GitHub. Another mistake a lot of people make is that they will put a hyperlink to your LinkedIn and GitHub. It may work if you download the PDF and click on the link, but a lot of times in these portals, these hiring teams can't even click on the link. So it just says LinkedIn with a blue underline, they can't use it. So make sure you spell out the link so people can actually use it, whether you print the resume or they're in the portal. You don't have to put the whole HTTP www as long as it's pretty obvious how you access it. Next thing you want to put is your phone number. Make sure you actually use this phone number because when they give you your offer, they're going to be using this phone. And put your location. If your location isn't the location of the job, definitely a good thing to emphasize. But if you're, for example, you're applying to somewhere in Oregon and you're in Santa Cruz, you may want to de-emphasize that because they don't want to pay for your relocation fees. If you land the final interview stage and you get the job, they're fine with paying it. But if there's 500 other applicants and someone doesn't have to pay the relocation fee, they may pick theirs instead. And the next thing, which is actually your first real header, is the education, so you are correct. You're gonna wanna include your university and your degree. A lot of the times people put just Bachelor of Computer Science or Bachelor of something. Ideally, you wanna spell out your whole degree. So for example, if you're Bachelor of Science, parentheses, B.S in Computer Science, you wanna spell it out. And you only need to include your graduation date, don't include your start date, it's not relevant. And one thing that a lot of people forget is that you want to include your notable coursework. This not only helps increase your word count, so for example, if you're applying to a machine learning job, there's more machine learning on your resume, but it also shows your interests and overall just shows you know what you're doing. And the next part, which is the meat and potatoes of your resume, is your experience and/or projects. If you have relevant experience, such as working as a software engineer or you're a grader for a computer science class, be sure to include that. But if not, this can be easily supplemented with projects with no issue. So let's do a basic breakdown of what you want to include. You first want to include the name of your title and the company. So for example, in this case, it would be HP and you're a system software intern. A lot of people ask, which one do you want to put first? Do you want to emphasize the company name or do you emphasize your position? Again, your resume is your personal marketing tool, so you're going to want to emphasize which sounds more impressive. If you have a lot of notable companies, such as Fortune 500 companies or companies you know the name of, such as DoorDash, you're going to want to emphasize the company. But if you don't have anything, you're just working in a small startup, I would highly recommend emphasizing your position name. But here's the thing, make sure it's consistent throughout your resume. Don't have the company name big in one position and the next one have the title. Just pick one and stick with it. The next thing you also want to include is the date of your position, pretty self-explanatory. And then you're going to want to have really well-crafted bullet points. So how do you write these bullet points? So generally you want a minimum of 2 bullet points, and this is what the description will look like. So set the stage of what you're doing, but don't simply just repeat what the job description says. You want to highlight what you did as an individual. And for the second bullet point, you want to dive deeper into what you did, ideally using measurable numbers, which helps boost your credibility. For example, you can say 40% increase or 32% users. Would a person reading your resume know what it means? No, it means absolutely nothing, but it shows that you have data to back up what you can actually do. So here are 2 good examples I pulled from some people's resumes. The first one is created a database system for data analysis of international airlines using Python and SQL. This is great because it talks about your technical experience, so Python and SQL. It uses a direct action verb at the beginning, such as created. Some other common ones are programmed and designed. And it shows what type of technologies you like to make. For example, database systems. If I were to improve the first bullet point, I would try to add more technical points. For example, did you use any tools for data visualization? Or what type of database system did you create? Did you create one DBMS or did you use NoSQL or Graph? Something like that could be more cool. And then for the second bullet point, it helps dive into deeper of what the first bullet point did. What was the result of the thing you created? In this case, the person increased the viewer engagement by 52% and viewer count by 62 times. Again, the hiring department doesn't really know what this means, but it shows that you've done your due diligence and you know you can pull real results. And now the second part is the cover letter. What's the difference? Most people don't even know what the difference between a cover letter and a resume is. So a cover letter brings a personal face to your application. Your resume shows your skills and history, but the cover letter shows your personality and how it would be like to work with you on a one-on-one situation. This is also a great place to include any information that doesn't fit on your resume. Let's say you worked at McDonald's and you did a little bit of IT work, but you can't put that on your resume because you were a food server. You can include that fun story in your cover letter. Just make sure you don't over-repeat your resume. So your cover letter header, you also want to include a header for these. You're going to want to put your email, your phone number, and the date you written the letter. And the thing is, when you're applying, you want to try to find out who's going to be reading your resume. Because even just by finding out their name, which can mostly be done with a quick Google search and figuring out what Scrum team you're applying to, this can greatly increase your chances with around 20 seconds of detective work. Also, you want to include the title and the company name. If you can't find the specific person reading your resume, you can just put hiring department. So here's an example of what a bad paragraph in a cover letter will look like. I'm writing to apply for this position at your company. I have a bachelor's degree in business admin from XYZ University. During my time at XYZ University, I studied subjects such as marketing, finance, and management. This is a bad cover letter example because if you break it down, the majority of this is pretty much everything on your resume. They already know you're a business admin major. They already know you go to university here. They already know your notable coursework. This is essentially a completely useless cover letter. It does not bring anything new to the table. So what you could do instead is talk about your personal ambitions. Why do you want to be a product manager? Why don't you want to be some other position at some other company? So this is a good example of what you can do. This person also did a great example of pulling in things that don't fit on your resume. For example, they were an electrical technician and a security agent, which shouldn't be included on your resume because it wasn't relevant, but they can talk about how those skills apply to product management and how they love it so much. Even after trying out all these careers, this is the one they want to go with. And the third is the secret sauce. If you've had Professor Harrison's classes, you know what I'm mentioning, but networking. Some people hate it, some people love it. Let's break it down. So what does networking do? A networking is the best way to bring a personal face to an application. A cover letter already does bring a personal face to your application, but networking, you have a literal person working at the company vouching for you. It also can introduce you to internal listings, which is extremely powerful. Most listings on LinkedIn and job recruiting websites average between 200 and 500 applicants. However, with an internal job listing, there's often less than 10 people, so you have a much higher chance. And the third thing is it lets you bypass interview steps. A lot of the times when you network and get an internal referral, you get to skip the lead code question. So, because there's always going to be someone at Berkeley with a higher lead code score than you, so anything you can do to get a step ahead is great. So now, how do you network? It's such a bizarre term. You just talk with people, right? And the truth of the matter is there's no hard and fast rules. It's going to be different for everyone. But one thing you want to do is just reach out to as many people as you can. Your fans, your friendly, your clients, and think outside of the box. Maybe your car is getting repaired or you're getting a haircut. Talk to your barber on how you're looking for a position. They may have a cousin or brother that has a position open, and you would be surprised how many positions are filled this way. Second thing is career events. Career events are a double-edged sword. In one case, it's really great because all of the companies are in one location, but the disadvantage is there's so many people at these career events, it can be really hard to stand out. And the third example is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has made jobs more difficult because now anyone across the nation can apply. But this also applies to you. This means you can apply to any jobs in the nation, and a lot of times people forget about messaging people. People on LinkedIn are like actual people, they're not robots, and you can feel free to message them. The worst thing they can do is ghost you, but it's a lot easier sending 50 LinkedIn messages than 50 applications. So here's an example of if you want to take the LinkedIn route, this is what you can do. So you want to phrase your message in a very strategic manner. The first thing you want to do is introduce yourself, where you are, what your student, and what your interests are. And the second reason is that why are you reaching out to that specific person? Why can't you message someone else? You want to show that you've done your research on them and that you're truly interested in the position. Third, you want to do a CTA, otherwise known as a call to action. What do you want the engineer or recruiter to do? There's no point in sending them a message if you don't have something you want them to do. And the third thing is, make sure to attach your resume in your first message. It just saves everyone time, saves a bit of back and forth. And you can see, Owen in this case, with literally just one message, in his very last response over 9 days later, he got an internal job listing. And this guy was able to get an internship at Amazon, which is pretty good considering all he did was just send one LinkedIn message. There's more to this message. You can ask me later how it looks, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. And don't get discouraged. You can see in the previous slide, October 11th was when he sent it, and he got it from October 20th. These people get a lot of messages, but it's a lot easier than sending hundreds of applications. So what's the takeaways for the cover letter? A cover letter brings a personal face to your application. Make sure you don't over-repeat your resume and include any information that doesn't. And use a combination of a resume and cover letter to start applying for jobs. And once you get to the interview stages, that's what the competitive programming club and other things are meant for. Study on your technical questions and work on your soft skills. And overall, there's my presentation on how to create a good resume and cover letter. So thank you.